I made my client think I was hacking her website, and she paid me $1,500 to stop. Client ghosted me after my landing page made her $6,000, so when her site mysteriously crashed, I let her believe I was the hacker. She begged me to stop and paid everything she owed. I've never told this story to anyone outside my closest friends, but you guys always say the best revenge stories come from the workplace. And holy shit, do I have one for you. This is about the time I accidentally became a fake hacker, psychologically manipulated a client who stiffed me, and learned the most valuable business lesson of my life. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me paint you the full picture of just how desperate I was back then, because context matters. 8 years ago, I was 22 years old and drowning in the deep end of adult life. Not literally drowning, but financially, emotionally, professionally, every way that actually matters when you're trying to build something from absolutely nothing. Picture this scene: a studio apartment in the kind of neighborhood where car alarms are white noise, and the corner store clerk knows you by your energy drink preferences. My furniture consisted of a mattress on the floor, a folding table from Walmart, 1 plate, 2 forks, and a laptop held together with electrical tape and pure desperation. I was 6 months into my grand plan to become a freelance copywriter. If you've never tried freelancing, let me save you some time. It's like being repeatedly punched in the face by the invisible hand of the free market, except you have to smile and say thank you for the opportunity after each hit. I had moved to the city with dreams of becoming the next David Ogilvy, armed with nothing but a marketing degree, a portfolio of fake projects I'd created for imaginary companies, and complete ignorance about how brutal the freelance world really is. The brutal reality of freelancing hit me like a freight train made of unpaid invoices and rejection emails. Those first 6 months were a masterclass in humiliation. I'd bid on Upwork projects for embarrassingly low rates, only to lose to someone willing to work for even less. I'd send cold emails to local businesses, offering to rewrite their websites for free, just to build my portfolio. Most didn't even respond. The ones who did respond usually wanted spec work. Write us a sample campaign, and if we like it, maybe we'll hire you. Translation: give us free work with no guarantee of payment. I was choosing between gas money and groceries on a weekly basis. Pride became a luxury I couldn't afford. My daily routine was pathetic. Wake up, check for new project postings, submit proposals to anything remotely related to writing, wait for rejections, eat ramen, repeat. I'd posted on every freelance board, Facebook group, Reddit community, and Craigslist section I could find. My standard pitch was variations of experienced copywriter available, reasonable rates, fast turnaround, 100% satisfaction guaranteed. Reasonable rates meant desperate rates. Fast turnaround meant I had literally nothing else going on. 100% satisfaction guaranteed meant I'd rewrite everything until they were happy, no matter how long it took. That's the headspace I was in when Crystal found me. She responded to one of my Upwork proposals. I'd applied to write product descriptions for her jewelry business, with this long, rambling message about connecting with her spiritual community through authentic, mystical commerce and channeling ancient wisdom into modern marketing. Red flags everywhere. But her Upwork profile showed she'd been in business for 3 years, had decent reviews, and most importantly, seemed to have actual money to spend. I was in no position to be picky about red flags. Our first Skype call was an experience. Crystal appeared on my cracked laptop screen like she'd stepped out of a Renaissance fair. Mid-40s, graying hair wrapped in what looked like a hemp scarf, wearing enough silver jewelry to set off a metal detector. Behind her, I could see shelves lined with crystals, dream catchers, tarot cards, and various metallic symbols I couldn't identify. Her home office looked like what would happen if a new age bookstore exploded in someone's spare bedroom. I sell authentic elven jewelry, she explained with complete seriousness, as if she were discussing quarterly earnings reports. Handcrafted recreations of ancient Celtic and Nordic protection symbols. Each piece is blessed under the full moon and charged with positive energy through traditional rituals. I kept my face neutral and nodded like I'd been writing for mystical jewelry sellers my entire career. Look, I don't judge what people believe in their personal lives, but I also don't have to understand it to write compelling copy about it. My current website is converting terribly, she continued, pulling up what looked like it had been designed in 2003 by someone who just discovered animated GIFs. Maybe 2% conversion rate. I know landing pages that convert at 8, 10, even 15% exist. I need someone who understands the spiritual marketplace and can speak to my customers' deeper needs. The spiritual marketplace. I nodded sagely, as if I'd studied it extensively at marketing school. Most copywriters don't get it, Crystal went on. They write like they're selling vacuum cleaners or car insurance. My customers aren't just buying jewelry, they're investing in protection, in connection to ancient wisdom, in tools for their spiritual journey. She wasn't wrong about that part. Her target market clearly had specific motivations and pain points that generic sales copy wouldn't address. "I need someone who can write about these pieces with respect and authenticity," she said. "Someone who understands that this isn't just commerce, it's sacred commerce. Sacred commerce." I added that to my growing list of new age business terminology. Here's where I made the decision that would define the next 4 months of my life, for better and worse. I agreed to work on a pure performance basis. No hourly rate. No project fee. No money up front whatsoever. Just a straight 5% commission on whatever sales the landing page generated. Crystal's face lit up when I suggested this arrangement. "That's perfect. It shows you truly believe in your work. It aligns our energies toward mutual success and abundance." I believed in my work, sure. But mostly I believed in eating something other than ramen noodles for dinner. The performance deal appealed to me for a few reasons beyond desperation. First, it removed Crystal's risk, which made her more likely to say yes. Second, if the page performed well, I could potentially make more than a flat project fee. Third, and most importantly, it was the only way I was going to get this gig. We spent the next hour and a half going through her existing website in excruciating detail. It was rough doesn't begin to cover it. Picture Comic Sans font in alternating purple and teal colors. Animated GIFs of sparkling gems scattered randomly across pages. Product descriptions that read like they'd been translated from English to Gaelic and back to English by someone who spoke neither language fluently. The navigation menu had 7 different fonts. The background was a tiled image of clouds that made the text nearly impossible to read. Every page had at least 3 different audio clips that auto-played simultaneously. It was the kind of website that makes visitors immediately question their life choices. But here's the thing. Underneath all that aesthetic chaos, Crystal actually had a legitimate business. The products themselves weren't terrible. Handcrafted silver pendants with intricate Celtic knots that showed real artisanal skill. Rings with historically accurate Norse runes. Earrings featuring symbols I didn't recognize, but looked genuinely ancient. The photography was surprisingly decent. Each piece was shot against a simple black background that highlighted the metalwork details. The prices were reasonable for handmade jewelry, ranging from $35 for simple pieces to $200 for elaborate necklaces. She had genuine customer reviews dating back years. People praising the quality, the fast shipping, the powerful energy they felt from wearing the pieces. A few customers had bought multiple items and left detailed testimonials about how the jewelry had impacted their spiritual practices. The foundation of a real business was there. It was just buried under the worst website design in human history. "Walk me through your ideal customer," I said, pulling out a notebook to take detailed notes. "Who's buying this stuff and why?" "Women, primarily," Crystal began, settling into what was clearly a well-rehearsed description. "Ages 25 to 55. They're interested in alternative spirituality, personal growth, connecting with ancient wisdom traditions. They shop at Whole Foods, practice yoga, read tarot cards, burn sage, that demographic." I was scribbling frantically. This was good intel, a clearly defined target market with specific lifestyle indicators and behavioral patterns. "They're also deeply skeptical," she continued. "They've been burned by mass-produced spiritual products imported from China and sold at markup by companies that don't understand or respect the traditions. They want authenticity, genuine craftsmanship, real connection to the historical and spiritual significance of these symbols." Perfect. I was starting to see the angles that would work with this audience. "They're willing to pay premium prices for pieces that feel authentic and powerful," Crystal said. "But they need to trust that what they're buying is genuine. They can spot fake spiritual marketing from a mile away." This was exactly the kind of market intelligence I needed. Crystal might have a terrible website and questionable business vocabulary, but she clearly understood her customers. "What's your biggest challenge right now?" I asked. "Traffic," she said immediately. "I get maybe 50 visitors a day to my site, mostly from Pinterest and organic search. But only 1 or 2 of them actually buy anything. I know the audience is out there. There are Facebook groups with hundreds of thousands of people interested in Celtic spirituality, Norse mythology, ancient symbols. I just can't seem to connect with them effectively." I could see the problem immediately. Her current homepage tried to be everything to everyone. There was no clear value proposition, no compelling reason to choose her products over the thousands of other spiritual jewelry sellers online. "What's your best-selling piece?" I asked. Without hesitation, she held up a silver pendant with an intricate Celtic knot design. "This is the Triple Protection Amulet. It's based on an ancient Irish design that was traditionally worn by warriors for protection in battle. I sell maybe 10 of these a week. I examined the pendant through the webcam. It was actually quite beautiful. The Celtic knotwork was complex and symmetrical. The silver had a nice weight and finish, and there was something genuinely compelling about the design. "Tell me about the history," I said. For the next 20 minutes, Crystal walked me through the historical significance of Celtic protection symbols, the spiritual beliefs behind them, and the traditional crafting methods she used. Despite her New Age terminology, she clearly knew her stuff. The historical details were accurate, her understanding of Celtic mythology was solid, and her respect for the traditions seemed genuine. By the end of our call, I had my angle: authentic ancient protection for modern spiritual seekers. We agreed on the scope. I'd write a dedicated landing page focused entirely on the triple protection amulet. If it performed well, we'd expand to other products in her line. 5% commission on every sale generated through that page. I estimated I was looking at maybe $300, $800 total if things went well. Enough to pay next month's rent and eat actual food for a few weeks. I had no idea I was about to write the most successful piece of copy in my career. I spent the next 3 days in complete research mode. I read everything I could find about Celtic symbolism, protection amulets, the historical context of Irish metalwork. I studied landing pages that converted well in adjacent markets, spiritual books, meditation courses, alternative health products. I analyzed the emotional triggers that motivated people interested in alternative spirituality: desire for connection to something larger than themselves, need for protection in a chaotic world, search for authentic meaning beyond mainstream culture. I dove deep into forums and Facebook groups where Crystal's target customers gathered. I read their posts, their concerns, their language patterns. I learned how they talked about their spiritual practices, what frustrated them about commercial spiritual products, what they valued most in the pieces they chose to wear. By day 3, I had a crystal clear picture of the landing page I needed to write. The hook would be ancient protection for modern life, positioning the amulet as a tested solution to contemporary problems, backed by over 1,000 years of successful use. The story would start with the chaos and spiritual pollution of modern living: social media negativity, work stress, environmental toxins, the constant assault on our energy and peace of mind. Then introduce the ancient Celtic protection symbol as a powerful solution, used successfully by warriors, druids, and spiritual seekers for generations. I'd weave in historical authenticity, craftsmanship details, and emotional benefits, while maintaining the respectful tone that Crystal's customers demanded. The copy would speak directly to women who felt overwhelmed by modern life and were seeking genuine connection to ancient wisdom traditions. The page would be long-form sales copy, around 2,400 words, structured to take readers through a complete emotional journey from problem awareness to solution desire to purchase decision. I wrote and rewrote every section multiple times. I tested different emotional appeals, rearranged the logical flow, refined the language until every sentence felt necessary and compelling. By Friday evening, I had created what I considered the best piece of sales copy I'd ever written. It felt authentic, respectful, and powerfully persuasive without being manipulative. I sent it to Crystal with a note: "I think this captures exactly what your customers are looking for. Can't wait to see how it performs." She responded within 2 hours: "This is absolutely perfect. It feels authentic and powerful. Exactly what I was hoping for. You've captured something I've been trying to express for years." I'm setting up the page this weekend and will start driving traffic Monday morning. The landing page went live Monday at 8 a.m. By 6 p.m. that same day, she'd made $120 in sales. I stared at her Google Analytics dashboard. She'd given me view access to track the page performance, not quite believing what I was seeing. $120 in 10 hours. From a page that had zero traffic that morning. My 5% commission on that was $6, which sounds pathetic until you remember I'd been living on ramen and hope for months. Tuesday brought $200 in sales. Wednesday hit $150. Thursday was $190. Friday reached $210. By the end of the first week, my landing page had generated $870 in total revenue. I was sitting in my sad little studio apartment, eating actual groceries for the first time in weeks, calculating my commission obsessively, like it was cryptocurrency during a bull run. 5% of $870 was $43.50 for 1 week. If this pace continued, I'd make over $170 in my first month for a piece of copy that took me 3 days to write. But the momentum was just getting started. Crystal was running Facebook ads to drive traffic to the landing page, and they were performing incredibly well. Her cost per acquisition was low, her customer lifetime value was high, and my copy was converting visitors at 11.8%, way above industry benchmarks. Week 2 brought in a $1,150. Week 3 hit $1,420. I started checking her analytics multiple times per day, watching the sales numbers climb like I was monitoring stock prices during earnings season. The page was working exactly as intended. Visitors would land on it, read through the emotional story about ancient protection and modern chaos, connect with the historical authenticity, and decide they needed that energy in their lives. Crystal was over the moon. She kept sending me excited emails about the results, talking about expanding to other products, maybe hiring me to rewrite her entire website. By the end of month 1, my landing page had generated $6,180 in total sales. My 5% commission should have been $309. For a broke freelancer choosing between gas money and groceries, that was legitimately life-changing money. I could pay my rent without stress, stock my refrigerator with real food, maybe even take a girl on an actual date instead of let's grab coffee and split the bill. I was already planning how to spend it. Part of me wanted to splurge on something ridiculous. A nice dinner, decent headphones, clothes that weren't from the clearance rack. But the practical side knew I should save it, use it as a buffer to take on better projects, invest in growing my business. I sent Crystal my first invoice with genuine excitement and gratitude. Subject line: amazing first month results, commission invoice attached. In the email, I included a detailed breakdown of the conversion numbers, thanked her for trusting me with the project, and expressed enthusiasm about scaling up to other products in her line. I was already imagining writing landing pages for her entire jewelry collection. I hit send at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday and sat back to wait for her response and payment. And waited. A week went by with no response to my email. No payment notification from PayPal. No acknowledgement that she'd even received the invoice. I sent a polite follow-up email. Hey Crystal, just wanted to make sure you received my commission invoice from last week. Let me know if you have any questions about the breakdown or need any additional information. Another week passed. Still nothing. That familiar knot started forming in my stomach. The same feeling I'd gotten as a kid when I realized adults were lying about something important, that the world was less fair and predictable than I'd been told. I checked her Google Analytics dashboard. She was still running Facebook ads. Sales were still coming in strong. In fact, they were accelerating. Week 5 had brought in over $1,600 in revenue dollars. But Crystal had completely vanished from our business relationship. I tried calling her phone number. Straight to voicemail, and the mailbox was full. I sent emails to different addresses I found associated with her business website. No responses. I even tried reaching out through her business Facebook page, thinking maybe her personal email was having issues. Complete radio silence. 6 weeks after sending my first invoice. 2 months. 3 months. During this entire period, I had a front row seat to my own exploitation. Crystal never revoked my access to her analytics dashboard, so I could watch in real time as she continued profiting from my work, while completely ignoring my attempts to collect payment. Every morning, I'd check the numbers. Every day, more sales. By month 3, my landing page had generated over $18,000 in total revenue. My commission should have been approaching $1,000. Instead, I had exactly $0 and a growing understanding of how naive I'd been. The psychological impact was worse than the financial loss. I felt stupid, used, completely powerless. I'd created something valuable, delivered exactly what was promised, exceeded expectations, and been rewarded with theft and silence. I started researching my legal options. Could I sue for unpaid commissions? Maybe, but a $300 debt wasn't worth hiring a lawyer over, and I didn't have money for legal fees anyway. Could I report her to business authorities? Probably, but that wouldn't get me paid. I considered trying to sabotage her website, but I'm not a hacker and had no idea how to do that, even if I wanted to. Plus, anything overtly malicious could land me in legal trouble I definitely couldn't afford. I thought about leaving negative reviews on her business profiles, but that felt petty and unprofessional. It might hurt her business, but it wouldn't get me my money. Mostly, I just felt defeated. This was my introduction to the dark side of freelancing. Clients who disappear after getting what they want, leaving contractors with no recourse and no payment for work already completed. I'd learned my first hard lesson about freelancing the worst possible way. Never work without a signed contract. Never work without partial payment up front. And never trust someone who talks about sacred commerce when money is involved. Why not? But I was broke, powerless, and rapidly running out of options. I figured I was screwed and needed to move on. That's when the universe decided to teach Crystal a lesson about karma. It was a Tuesday morning in December, exactly 4 months after Crystal had ghosted me. I was sitting in a conference room at the marketing agency where I'd been forced to take a day job, about to discuss Q4 budget allocations, and pretending to care about corporate marketing strategies. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "My site is down. Are you doing this? Please stop." I stared at that message for a full minute, my brain struggling to process what I was reading. Crystal. Duh. It had to be Crystal. My first thought was confusion. Doing what? I was sitting in a corporate conference room in a cheap suit, about to discuss banner ad performance metrics. I hadn't even thought about Crystal or her mystical jewelry business in weeks. My second thought was much more interesting. She thought I was responsible for her website being down, which meant her website was actually down, which meant she was panicking about lost sales and technical problems, which meant, for the first time in 4 months, I had leverage. Now, here's the crucial detail that makes this story interesting instead of just sad. I had absolutely nothing to do with whatever was happening to her website. Nothing whatsoever. I'm a copywriter who struggles to fix my own printer when it jams. The most technical thing I'd done all week was updating my LinkedIn profile. I wouldn't know how to hack a website if someone offered me a tutorial and a year to practice. But Crystal didn't know that. From her perspective, she'd stiffed a contractor who had administrative access to her website backend. And now that website was mysteriously malfunctioning right before the busy holiday shopping season. Her guilty conscience was connecting dots that weren't actually connected, creating a narrative where I was the obvious suspect for her technical problems. I had a choice to make in that conference room. I could text back immediately, clarify that I wasn't involved in whatever was happening to her site, wish her luck resolving the technical issues, and go back to discussing quarterly marketing metrics. Or I could use her paranoia and guilt to finally collect the money she owed me. The ethical choice was obviously the first option. The practical choice, the choice that might actually result in me getting paid for 4 months of stolen work, was the second. I chose the second option, but I had to be extremely careful about how I played it. I couldn't make any direct threats or admit to anything illegal. I couldn't claim responsibility for attacking her website or promise to continue causing problems. Any of that could be used as evidence against me if she decided to involve law enforcement. But I also couldn't be too innocent, or she might realize I wasn't actually involved and lose her motivation to pay me. I needed to be vague enough to maintain plausible deniability, while specific enough to maintain the psychological pressure her guilt was creating. After thinking it through for 10 minutes, the longest 10 minutes of my professional life, I texted back, "Sorry, but I'm not going to talk to you until you pay me what you owe me." Perfect. I wasn't admitting to attacking her site. I wasn't threatening to continue any attacks. I wasn't even acknowledging that her site was down. I was simply refusing to communicate with her until she resolved our outstanding business matter. Completely reasonable and legally defensible. But in Crystal's paranoid mindset, it would sound like confirmation that I was responsible for her problems and would continue causing them until she paid up. The psychology was beautiful in its simplicity. Her guilt over stealing my work had primed her to assume the worst when technical problems occurred. My refusal to help or even discuss the situation would seem like proof that I was behind it. My phone rang within 3 minutes. "What do you want?" Crystal's voice was completely different from our previous conversations. Gone was the confident, mystical businesswoman. She sounded shaky, stressed, genuinely frightened. I kept my voice calm and professional, like I was discussing a routine business matter. "I want what we originally agreed on, Crystal. 5% commission on sales, generated by the landing page," I wrote. "I still have access to your analytics. I know exactly how much revenue that page has generated." There was a long pause. I could hear her breathing heavily, probably calculating numbers in her head. "How much total?" she finally asked. I'd been tracking her numbers obsessively for months, watching my unpaid commission grow day by day. $1,500. That's 5% of the $30,000 in sales my copy has generated for your business. Actually, she'd made closer to $35,000 by that point. But I was being deliberately conservative. I wanted a number she couldn't reasonably argue with, even in her panic state. "If I pay you that amount," she said carefully, "will you fix my website?" This was the most crucial moment of the entire conversation. I couldn't say yes, because that would be admitting I'd broken her site. I couldn't say no because that might make her realize I wasn't actually capable of fixing it, which could lead her to conclude I wasn't responsible for breaking it either. I needed to stay vague while maintaining the implied connection between payment and problem resolution. "Let's handle the outstanding payment first," I said. "Once our business relationship is properly resolved and current, we can discuss your technical issues." Another long pause. I could practically hear her internal debate: pay the money and hope the problems stop, or call my bluff and risk continued disruption during her busiest sales season. Well, Marzei, I need to check my PayPal balance, she said. Can I call you back in an hour? Take your time, I said. I'm not going anywhere. She hung up, and I sat in that conference room trying to process what had just happened. Was this actually going to work? Was I about to collect $1,500 for work I'd done 4 months ago and given up hope of ever being paid for? Or was Crystal going to calm down, call her web hosting company, discover the real cause of her technical problems, and realize I'd been bluffing? For the next 2 hours, I couldn't concentrate on anything work-related. I kept checking my phone, my PayPal account, my email. Every few minutes, I'd refresh Crystal's website to see if it was back online yet. At 3:47 p.m., my phone chimed with the most beautiful sound in the world, a PayPal payment notification. You've received $1,500 from Crystal, a last name. Note: website issues resolution payment. I stared at that notification for what felt like 5 minutes. $1,500. Money I'd earned through legitimate work. Money I was contractually owed. Money I'd given up hope of ever seeing. My hands were literally shaking as I typed my final response to Crystal. Payment received. Thank you for resolving our outstanding business matter. For the record, I had nothing to do with your website issues. You should contact your hosting company's technical support for assistance with server problems. I hit send and then sat back in my office chair waiting for the explosion. For her to realize she'd been played by her own guilt and paranoia. For angry calls, threats to reverse the payment, demands for the money back. Instead, I got exactly what I'd been getting from Crystal for 4 months. Complete silence. I never heard from her again. Later that evening, curious about what had actually caused her website problems, I did some investigating. A quick Google search revealed that her hosting company had been experiencing widespread server outages that entire week. Multiple websites were affected. Forums were full of customers complaining about downtime, slow loading speeds, and intermittent service disruptions. Crystal's technical problems had absolutely nothing to do with me or anyone else targeting her specifically. It was just bad timing. Routine server maintenance gone wrong, probably. But her guilty conscience over stiffing me had made the connection automatically. When her site went down, she immediately assumed it was payback for her unpaid debt. Her paranoia had done all the psychological work for me. Looking back 8 years later, I realized that Crystal accidentally gave me the most valuable education in business psychology I could have received. Guilt makes people paranoid. Paranoia makes people irrational. Irrational people make decisions based on fear rather than facts. Crystal could have taken 10 minutes to contact her hosting company and discovered the real cause of her problems. She could have called my bluff and refused to pay. She could have simply ignored my text like she'd been ignoring my emails for months. Instead, her knowledge that she'd screwed me over made her assume the worst when unrelated problems occurred. That assumption cost her $1,500 she could have avoided paying if she'd just been honest and fair from the beginning. The irony is perfect. Her dishonesty created the very situation that forced her to finally be honest. I used that $1,500 to completely transform my freelance business. I invested in proper contract templates, established clear payment terms, built relationships with clients who understood the value of good copywriting. Within 6 months, I was making more in a week than Crystal had ever owed me. Within a year, my copywriting business was generating consistent 5-figure months. These days, I run a 6-figure copywriting agency. I work with major brands, charge premium rates, and never, ever work without contracts and upfront payments. I still check Crystal's website occasionally. Old habits die hard. And I'm curious about how my copy has aged. She's still in business, still selling mystical jewelry, still using my landing page word for word, exactly as I wrote it 8 years ago. That page has probably generated over $250,000 in total sales by now. And you know what? I'm not angry about it anymore. That entire experience taught me lessons about business, psychology, and human nature that were worth far more than any single payment. Crystal gave me a masterclass in client psychology, contract negotiation, and the importance of protecting yourself in business relationships. She taught me to never trust someone who talks about sacred commerce while practicing profane business ethics. But mostly, she taught me that sometimes the best revenge isn't elaborate schemes or calculated destruction. Sometimes it's just letting people's own guilt and poor judgment create the consequences they deserve. Sometimes karma doesn't need any help. It just needs patience and the right moment to strike. I still smile when I remember the panic in Crystal's voice. Please stop. I wasn't doing anything, Crystal. But your guilty conscience was working overtime. A lot of people are asking if what I did was technically legal. I never claimed responsibility for her technical issues, never made threats, never promised to continue causing problems. I simply refused to communicate until she paid an outstanding debt. Her conclusion that I was involved was entirely her own assumption based on her guilty conscience about stiffing me. For fellow freelancers reading this, please learn from my original mistake. Always get signed contracts. Always require partial payment up front. Never work on pure commission with strangers, no matter how desperate you are. I got incredibly lucky with the timing of her server issues. This could have easily gone nowhere, and I'd still be out the money. Someone asked what Crystal's business looks like now. She's apparently still operating and doing well. Her website shows steady growth. She's expanded her product line, and she's still using my original copy. I harbor no ill will toward her at this point. That experience was worth more than $1,500 in business education. Several people have asked about the landing page itself. It's still live and completely unchanged after 8 years. Sometimes I show it to new clients as an example of conversion copy that stands the test of time. They don't need to know the full dramatic story behind it, but now you do. The biggest lesson here isn't about revenge or getting even. It's about how guilt and paranoia can make people their own worst enemies. Crystal could have avoided the entire situation by simply paying what she owed when she owed it. Instead, her dishonesty created a psychological trap that eventually forced her to pay anyway. Sometimes the best business strategy is just being honest and fair from the start.